The world did not change because it was conquered. It changed because movement outran memory. Before the hooves crossed the rivers, before walls were tested and cities learned the sound of flight, Eurasia already held a quiet contradiction. It was vast, yet tightly threaded. Goods traveled farther than ideas. Beliefs hardened at borders even as silk, salt, and silver passed through unseen hands. Civilizations imagined themselves anchored, rooted to soil, to lineage, to ritual, while depending on distances they rarely acknowledged. Stability was not stillness. It was motion tolerated at the margins. What arrived from the steppe did not announce itself as destiny. It appeared first as pressure, an acceleration at the edge of maps, routes that once curved now bent, distances shortened. The old rhythm of seasonal exchange, slow caravans, predictable intermediaries, patient tolls, began to strain. Not because anyone willed it, but because the land itself had long prepared for velocity. Grasslands favored movement. Horses favored scale. Survival favored expansion before scarcity could harden into collapse. The contradiction was this: the most settled regions of the world depended on the least settled to remain distant. When that distance collapsed, the illusion went with it. Eurasia, before the invasions, was not one world. It was many worlds touching but rarely yielding. Forest zones thickened into agricultural belts. River valleys narrowed into cities whose names were older than their rulers. Mountain passes acted as filters, deciding which gods, which metals, which diseases might pass through. Empires rose where terrain allowed accumulation and paused where it did not. Steppe lands, wide and exposed, resisted enclosure. They produced movement instead of monuments. This was not a moral divide. It was an architectural one. Trade routes stitched the zones together, but only loosely. Each civilization touched the network where it could afford to, extracting value while preserving internal coherence. The steppe was the exception. It had no interior separate from its edges. To live there was to traverse it. To traverse it was to depend on horizons rather than walls. The system rewarded those who could synchronize across distance, those who could coordinate motion rather than defend position. Over time, pressures accumulated, climate oscillated, pastures shifted, tribes compressed and dispersed. What mattered was not any single drought or alliance, but the long conditioning of adaptation. Mobility became governance. Communication became survival. Authority emerged not from fixed capitals, but from the ability to align dispersed actors toward a shared direction. When that capacity encountered the sedentary world, it did not confront it head-on at first. It flowed around it. The invasions followed the lines already drawn by trade. Rivers were not obstacles, they were guides. Cities were not mysteries, they were concentrations. Fortifications slowed, but did not confuse. The system had already mapped value before armies arrived. What looked like chaos to those being overrun was, from another angle, a brutal clarity. Resources were where density lay. Resistance clustered where habit persisted. The transformation was not limited to destruction. It was reorganization under speed. Borders that once functioned as buffers became conduits. Regions previously insulated by distance were abruptly adjacent. The same routes that carried grain and tribute carried information about weaknesses, about rivalries, about wealth stored behind aging walls. The invasions did not invent connectivity. They enforced it. Eurasia began to behave like a single field rather than a mosaic. The steppe system imposed a different grammar of scale. Messages traveled faster than countermeasures. Coordination outpaced deliberation. The old equilibrium, slow exchange balanced by local autonomy, collapsed under a tempo it could not absorb. Cities learned that their greatest protection, distance, had inverted. What once took months now took weeks. What once arrived fragmented now arrived whole. This was not merely conquest layered onto an existing order. It was compression. The distances between cause and effect shortened. Decisions rippled farther. Errors propagated faster. Regions that had never shared fate now did, whether they recognized it or not. Trade intensified even as destruction spread. Paradox followed pressure. Routes cleared by force became safer for merchants. Goods moved with fewer intermediaries. Silver from one edge of the continent found its way to another with unprecedented regularity. Technologies crossed zones that had once filtered them out. Paper, powder, disease. None respected the old separations. The system did not distinguish between benefit and cost. It amplified both. Local structures bent. Some collapsed outright, unable to recalibrate fast enough. Others adapted, absorbing new roles within the wider circulation. Administrative practices spread not because they were superior, but because they fit the tempo now required. Record-keeping accelerated. Taxation widened. Diplomatic norms adjusted to a world where negotiation happened under the shadow of movement, not siege. The invasions reshaped Eurasia not by erasing civilizations, but by stripping them of their insulation. Over time, the initial violence receded, but the reconfiguration remained. Roads stayed open, networks stayed dense. The memory of shock faded faster than the habits it forced into place. Regions once peripheral found themselves central simply because the lines had shifted. Others discovered that centrality was fragile when it depended on slow control. The system learned that stability could emerge from circulation rather than stasis. Yet compression carried a cost. When everything connects, failures synchronize. Plague traveled the same roads as silk. Collapse in one zone reverberated elsewhere. The same integration that enriched some exposed others. Autonomy narrowed, local resilience weakened under reliance on distant flows. The steppe itself changed. Its role as origin gave way to absorption. Once the system spread, it no longer required the same source. The grasslands that had produced movement were gradually enclosed by the very connectivity they unleashed. What had been advantage dissolved into background. The invasions did not end with withdrawal, they ended with normalization. Civilizations that survived learned to operate at scale. Those that did not left gaps that were filled by others better aligned with the new tempo. Over generations, the memory of why the world sped up blurred. The effects remained, detached from their origin. Eurasia, after the invasions, was not unified in belief or rule. It was unified in exposure. Distance no longer guaranteed delay. Isolation no longer ensured safety. The system had shifted from one of buffered plurality to one of continuous contact, and contact is never neutral. What fractured was not only cities or dynasties, but the assumption that the world could be partitioned into slow and fast, core and edge, settled and wild. The steppe revealed that edges were engines, that what seemed marginal could reorganize the whole. Once that truth entered the structure, it could not be removed. The fracture deepened quietly. As networks tightened, the margin for error shrank. Systems grew efficient but brittle. They delivered abundance alongside vulnerability. The memory of the invasions became a story of domination, but the deeper erosion lay in dependence, on routes that could not be unmade, on scales that could not be reduced without loss. The land remembered even when people did not. In the end, there was no return to before, only a layering of afters. The old worlds persisted, but inside a larger frame that demanded awareness of elsewhere. Eurasia became less a collection of places and more a condition, of movement, of exposure, of shared consequence. The pattern lingers because it is unfinished. Connectivity continues to promise gain while carrying risk. Speed still outruns understanding. Systems still mistake momentum for control. The hooves faded. The pressure did not. If you found meaning here, you're welcome to explore more on timeless questions. where we examine history not for answers, but for understanding.